your side. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offer candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offer prayers to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Well, good afternoon, friends. Nayaswami Hriman here from the Camino Hermitage on Camino Island. As Padma and I come down the home stretch of the last few days of Whispers from Eternity, we're going to switch on Friday to readings from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam as commented upon, interpreted by Paramahansa Yogananda through the writings of his disciple, Swami Kriyananda. That'll be a whole new adventure. But today we are on number 214, one of those long ones. So we better start. Today, by the way, I hope to say a few words about Martin Luther King. It's Martin Luther King Day, Monday, the 18th of January. Today's reading, number 214, is entitled, My Lost Music Sprang from the Heart of Everything. I heard sweet, enchanted music playing faintly beneath the sounds of my outer life, as if coming from forgotten dreams. Stilly I listened, and the music grew more and more subtle, poignant, and sweet, drawing me inward until I could hear it no longer with my earthly ears. Patiently I waited, striving to think whether I'd ever heard earthly music like the divine nuances of these new melodies. No, in my rich storehouse of memory I found no likeness to those enchanting sounds that had come and gone in my consciousness like phantoms of idle reflection. Had I really heard that music, or had I only imagined its sweet harmony? Was it the exquisite expression of my subtle highest aspirations, or was it only the sound of harmonious whispers of passing fancy? I waited. Deeply, inwardly I listened. I entered through the portals of my subtle senses and walked in the garden of my dreams of eternity. Ah, at last I saw dancing in those dreams shining waves and bouncing wavelets of craving through countless earthly incarnations. Then I heard, coming faintly over the water, strains of many wondrous melodies. None, however, were like those soul recollections which I had heard before and lost. Suddenly, in deepest silence, those ancient sounds returned, swelling up from beneath, hidden memories of my soul. And then that music engulfed in one huge billow all my waves and ripples of past cravings, all delights and sorrows, all victories and failures, all expectations and disappointments of myriad past lives. I needed no other sounds, no other vibrations of earthly fulfillment to satisfy my heart. Then it was that lost music of my soul resounded at the heart of everything, pulsing from the very heart of all my private dreams. Ear hath never heard, thought hath never conceived, love hath never trembled with, dream hath never visualized, tongue hath never told, nor can any ever describe that long last, long forgotten, but anciently remembered music. Behind the curtains of life's ceaseless play, I found again, playing on harp strings of all deep feeling, the lost but now found, beloved music of my soul. It's vicariously refreshing even to contemplate those words, however dimly their true meaning must be hidden in the recesses of my own heart and your heart as well. Om is the melody of love, the title of a book by a friend of mine, Joseph Cornell, known as Bharat. At the heart of everything is that sound. It's really a feeling as well. It is the feeling of love and the sound of Om, the silent word of God, vibrating from the heart of infinity outward into the cosmos, into the void, really, whereupon the multiplicity of things multiplies. Well, I'd like to switch now to Martin Luther King. This last weekend, or a few days ago, our friends at Ananda in Sacramento did a version of the program that we here in Seattle did for 13 or 14 years, where we interwove the lives and sayings and stories of Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend, and Mahatma Gandhi, both champions of nonviolence as a means of achieving justice in an unjust world. And today, the day that was designated long ago, I forget by which president of the United States now, but designated as Martin Luther King Day. It is very poignant, especially after the events of the last year with the Black Lives Matter movement gaining resurgence and so forth. The lives of Gandhi and King, which were interrelated, though not they didn't know each other, nonetheless offers for humanity a way by which we can redress injustice based especially on mass but superficial characteristics such as race and gender and so forth. The ability to be willing to be harmed without giving harm as one protests injustice is a very powerful weapon. The taking over of the capital of America last week is just another reminder down through the ages that it doesn't take many people to make changes for good or not so good in this world. I think of the Arab Spring, so-called, some years ago, not that many years ago. It doesn't take that many people to overthrow a government. It doesn't take that many people to make for positive change. And I'm not suggesting we overthrow a government here, but I am saying we can overthrow injustice, overthrow prejudice and ignorance. But you have to be willing, as Gandhi taught through the principles and practices of what he called satyagraha, we have to be willing to take the first blow. We have to be willing to make the sacrifices. One of the great teachings of the ages, both in Christian teachings and the Old Testament, as well as even more clearly in the Hindu stories and teachings, which is the necessity of sacrifice, tapasya, in order to yajna, as some of the Sanskrit terms are, the necessity to express self-control for the purposes of a larger and more important gain. We do this when we go to college, for example. We do this when we invest money for the long term. We do this in countless ways. We improve our skills, our career skills at work. We make the effort to put aside differences in a committed relationship, for example. The means by which the world moves is through the means and practice and reality of self-offering, self-giving, self-sacrifice. You know, the clouds sacrifice their water to send rain upon the earth. The sun sacrifices its energy to rain upon us sunshine. The parents sacrifice for their children. Everywhere in the world, positive gains, well, maybe at least also the negative gains, but the positive gains, the things that we seek in life, are accomplished through effort, which means sacrifice. And in order for injustice in the world, in order to have the light of truth shine upon it, requires those who have to stand up for that light. But it doesn't mean fighting people on the same level of their own ignorance or their own hatred. That an eye for an eye just makes us all blind, as has been said. And so when I think of Martin Luther King, when I think of Mahatma Gandhi, I think of those who were willing to give the greatest sacrifice, as we deem it to be anyway, in the human body, the human life. And I want to honor that. And we all do it in our own lives, in our own ways, for our own purposes. But we don't often recognize the importance. You know, it could be called the Protestant work ethic, could be called lots of things. It is called lots of things. But the need, another aspect of it is the need for self-control. In other words, remember the famous experiment that established the term emotional intelligence. And it was a famous experiment in which children were offered the opportunity to have a cookie or 2 cookies, and if they abstained from taking the 1 cookie now, they could get 2 cookies later. And then the children who were able to do that not only got 2 cookies, but later in life it was shown that as they followed these children, that they were happier people. They were more able to get along. And so the essence of the state of yoga in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is yogas chitta vritti nirod. Yoga, the state of happiness, is achieved by calming down the reactive process so that we can have a long-term gain in relationships and health. All of these things require a certain degree of self-control. And so whether it's the United States Congress or politics generally with the deep polarization, we would gain so much more if we would but watch our tongue, if we would listen, if we would respond intelligently and calmly to our self-described opponents, for example, and if our opponents were willing also to listen and dialogue. It's really not that complicated, but it's also not that easy once the emotions are struck. And so I want to honor today not just the grand music of the spheres, as mentioned in today's reading, as the glorious destiny of our soul. It is the essence of our soul. It awaits us in our soul. But also how we get there. And we get there through self-control. We get there through listening. We get there by remaining calm. It doesn't mean that everyone is right and nobody's wrong in a given circumstance. It just means that the way we approach resolution requires that patience, which is the quickest way to success. Patience is the long-term runner, the long-distance runner who sees the goal as achieving inclusion. And this inclusion You know, when I studied the life of both Gandhi and King, and when I helped create those programs years ago, I was struck especially with Martin Luther King, who was, after all, a Christian Baptist. Gandhi, after all, was a Hindu, but he had already had the predisposition to respect, accept, and even admire all faith traditions. I wasn't sure, in my limited knowledge, whether Reverend King, as a Baptist minister from the South, had that kind of a vision. But he did have that kind of a vision. In fact, he could have easily, in that lifetime, have become a scholar. His intelligence, not just his intellectual intelligence, which was quite great, but also his emotional intelligence, vastly outdistanced whatever narrowness of scope might have otherwise been offered to him through his ministry as a Baptist preacher. He was a man for all races, a man for all ages, as was Gandhi. And if ever on this planet there's a time for all of us to be citizens of this world and children of God, it is most certainly now. So with deep faith, sincerity, and appreciation for the greatness of King and Gandhi and other great souls, Nelson Mandela, and down through the ages, I end today's broadcast. A little long, but what can I say? I did. All right, I'm going to take a moment here to sign off on my little phone. So hang in there. We are going to count to 10 as this film renders out to you. Okay.